Shabbat Shalom. It is wonderful to see everyone. So we are going to open. Rabbi, did you want to say something? Sorry.
No, I cleverly failed to unmute myself, but I just wanted to say Shabbat Shalom and to welcome everyone to this service here at Congregation Cherith Israel, and to say that that is Cantor Toby Glaser, who's about to lead us in some more music. I'm Rabbi Abby Phelps. We're joined by Jonathan Dimmick, who's at our fabulous piano and our fabulous sanctuary, being our fabulous music director and enhancing our service with his music. And of course, Peter Bonos and Zach McDale, who are helping keep the technology running smoothly. So thank you all for being here this evening, and we wish you a peaceful Shabbat.
Absolutely. And we have coming up Tu B'Shvat, which is the birthday of the trees. And so we actually have a really beautiful text in our Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms from Psalm 96. It's verse 12 of Psalm 96. Small verse, but a lot of punch. Ya'aloz sadai v'chol asher bo, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, which means the fields all rejoiced with everything in them, and the trees kind of exalted, praised with joy. Yoranena, right? This is the trees giving praise. So it's all about the nature giving praise to God, and I think it fits really well with our Tu B'Shvat celebrations. So this is Ya'aloz Sadai by Yoel Sykes. Ya'aloz Sadai v'chol asher bo, Ya'aloz Sadai. Ay, 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 Ya'aloz Sadai v'chol asher bo, Ya'aloz Sadai. Ay, 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 az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar. Ya'aloz sadai v'chol asher bo, Ya'aloz sadai. Ay, 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 Ya'aloz sadai v'chol asher bo, Ya'aloz sadai. Ay, 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 az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar, az yiranenu kol atzei ya'ar. Ya'aloz sadai v'kol asher bo, Ya'aloz sadai. Ay, 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 Ya'aloz sadai v'chol asher bo, Ya'aloz sadai. Ay, 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 ay. Ya'aloz sadai. The trees rejoiced.
They did indeed, and we hope they continue to do so with our help. Before we formally begin Shabbat by lighting our candles, I'd like to invite Judy Wexler, a member of our Board of Trustees, to say a few of her own words of greeting. So Judy, there you are.
Good. Well, I love the image of the trees rejoicing. I often feel like I'm rejoicing when I'm out with the trees. It's such a pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the Board of Trustees. As much as I wish that we were all together in the sanctuary under the dome, I think under the current circumstance, it's even more important that we are here together like this, that these are the kinds of moments in which being in community are absolutely essential. And for us to remember and experience the ways in which Jews have been in community for millennium, dealing with all kinds of trauma and difficulty, and surviving and thriving. And so it's good to be with all of you, and I feel us virtually holding hands and looking forward to the day when we can not only be together, but we can actually touch. So Shabbat Shalom and welcome.
Thank you, Judy. If you have a set of candles somewhere ready to hand, somewhere visible to the screen, as I think many of you do, as we have learned on these Shabbatot, yep, I can see Shira's already. Please go ahead and bring them out now. And oh, I see Chris and Janet's. I'm sure there are many others that I have not seen yet, but go ahead and bring those out and light them. And Cantor Glaser is lighting his own candles. And then in a moment, he will lead us in the candle blessing.
Please unmute, Toby.
I was creating so much atmosphere in my head, and it was totally muted. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר, להדליק נר של שבת.
And we're going to now welcome Shabbat in the form of our beloved who comes to greet us out in the fields each week with Lecha Dodi, a song and prayer which you can find in your prayer books on page 20.
For some people, maybe some of you know it. Melody for Lecha Dodi that we haven't used before. Yadadadadai Lecha Dodi, Ladadadadai Likrat Kala, Yadadadadai Penei Shabbat, Penei Shabbat Nekabela, Yadadadadai Lecha Dodi, Yadadadadai Likrat Kala, Yadadadadai Penei Shabbat, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, שמו תפארת ולתהילה. ידעי לך דודי, ידעי לקראת כלה, ידעי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. ידעי לך דודי, ידעי לקראת כלה, ידעי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת ונלכה, כי מקום הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. ידעי לך דודי, ידעי לקראת כלה, ידעי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. ידעי לך דודי, ידעי לקראת כלה, ידעי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שידברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. די 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 לך דודי, די 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 לקראת כלה, די 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 פני שבת נקבלה, די 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 לך דודי, די 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 לקראת כלה, די 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 פני שבת נקבלה. We rise as we are able to greet the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha, uvtzola, toch emunei, סגולה בואלה בואי חלה יאי די די לך דודי, יאי די די לקראת כלה, יאי די די פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, ידה דה 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 לך דודי, ידה דה 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 לקראת כלה, ידה דה 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 פני שבת נקבלה.
I just saw a little notification on my screen that Lindsay Bronig / Ike's mom just entered the waiting room. So I thought I would share that with everyone. At any rate, she has...
Sorry, Rabbi, my Siddur is just over there, so I'm going to run and get it. So just so you know, I'll be back in 2 seconds.
No problem. Well, not to call anyone out, but I thought that was a particularly delightful development to notice as we are all in this moment of preparing to call one another formally to prayer, transitioning from our Kabbalat Shabbat service, our welcoming of Shabbat, into our Ma'ariv, our evening service. We're going to begin with that call to prayer, the Baruch, which you can find in your prayer book on page 28. And please remain standing or rise as able.
Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. יאי די 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 די.
As we approach Tu B'Shvat, we are reminded anew of how God shows God's love for us in so many myriad ways, through the beauty of nature and trees, all of the wonderful plants and animals that we are able to connect with in the world, and also through the giving of responsibilities, through mitzvot, commandments that God bestows upon us to fulfill in the world. We're going to join together in celebrating all these expressions of love from God with Ahavat Olam, which you can find on page 32.
Olam, Bet Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Amcha Avta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו, ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו, ואורך ימינו. ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו, ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך. Please be seated. בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
As you may know, tonight marks the beginning of Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbat where we chant and consider the meaning of the Song of the Sea. And so that makes this moment in our service an especially meaningful one, because we are going to join together in that excerpt from the Song of the Sea that we repeat at every service, in which we celebrate our gratitude for freedom and our commitment to maintaining it. That's the prayer Mi Chamocha, which you can find in your prayer books on page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאי די די yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yada dai 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 yay die 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 yay die 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 yay die 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 ונאמר כבר אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
When we come together in prayer, we have the opportunity to focus our energies not just on that which delights or comforts us, but also on that which those around us in our community need. And one of the things we have the blessing to be able to do is pray for the healing of our loved ones, healing of mind, body, and spirit. On this Shabbat, we think especially for healing of Aharon Ben Tzvi, Jeremy Frick, Michael Gaines, Mikiko Huang, William Kurian, Monica Levin, Carolyn Resnikoff, Agnes Rothblatt, and Annette Weiner. And to those names, we invite you to add any names you are holding in your hearts this evening, either in the chat or during the interlude in the middle of the Mishberach prayer. We continue with that prayer on page 253 in our prayer books.
Mishberach avotenu מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishberach imotenu מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Please rise as able as we prepare for the standing prayer, the Amidah, beginning with Adonai Sephatai, which you can find in your prayer books on page 46.
Yadai dai dai dai, 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 yadai dai dai dai. Adonai Sephatai tiftach, ufi yagid hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yadai dai dai, yadai dai 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 dai dai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, יעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל, ועל כל, ועל כל Yisrael ve'al kol ve'al kol ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru amen ve'imeru amen. We ask for peace on earth, and we say Amen. Ve'imeru Amen, ve'imeru Amen. We raise our voice as one, and we say Amen.
Amen. Jonathan, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but if you're able to speak into your mic, do you want to tell everybody what that piece was that you played during the Amidah? Because I think it's so cool.
So the piece was by Handel, and it's from his opera Xerxes, and it's actually a aria to a tree. It's called Ombra Mai Fu, and it's the song that this singer sings to a tree that's growing in the middle of the stage. So it's all about a tree.
Do you mind if I read the translation, Jonathan?
Oh, that'd be great.
Excellent. So in honor of Shabbat Shirah, obviously, and of this beautiful Tu B'Shvat celebration, tender and beautiful fronds of my beloved plane tree. I don't know what that is. Let fate smile.
It's a sycamore.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Let fate smile upon you. May thunder, lightning, and storms never disturb your dear peace, nor may you by blowing winds be profaned. Never was a shade of any plant dearer and more lovely or more sweet. The end. Beautiful text,
Totally
and thank you for
beautiful.
sharing it.
Thank you for sharing it, and thank you, Jonathan, for playing it for us. Well, speaking of reflections on trees, this past Sunday, in an effort to maximize safety amid the Omicron surge, we transformed our usual Sunday studio at Sheriff Israel session into a pre-Tu B'Shvat family hike. Of course, Tu B'Shvat actually begins at sundown this Sunday, but since studio is off this Sunday for the long MLK weekend, we decided to go ahead and observe Tu B'Shvat a little early. We met up at Land's End Lookout, where we were blessed with phenomenally beautiful weather, and we spent a lovely morning enjoying nature and one another's company. And there were a few activities that I recommended that families try on the hike. One of them is a quick and easy one that I thought I would encourage people to try right now if you wish. So if you want to participate, go ahead and stand up. We're going to do what I'm calling a tree stretch. So you plant your feet firmly on the ground and you reach your hands up to the sky. And as you do so, you imagine what it might feel like to actually be a tree, to draw water and nutrients up from the earth through your roots, and to feel the wind in your branches and the rain and the sun on your leaves. Now, think about your own roots as a person. Who are those people, places, and things that have nourished you throughout your life? And also, think about your fruits. What are the things, the ideas or feelings that you want to put out into the world? What can you do or create that will nourish others as you have been nourished? I think it's valuable for us to take time periodically to reconnect with our roots and our goals. And it turns out, unsurprisingly, that I'm not the only person who has been thinking this way this week. Earlier today, I was reading a series of essays commissioned by Keshet, an organization dedicated to LGBTQ equality in Jewish life. These were reflections composed by queer Black Jewish writers and thinkers to honor the confluence of Tu B'Shvat and Martin Luther King Jr. Day this year. Dr. King would have turned 93 tomorrow, and that would be the day before Erev Tu B'Shvat. In her essay entitled The Roots of Our Ancestors, one of these commenters, Rachel Faulkner, writes about how the confluence of these holidays reminds her of the importance of celebrating her own roots. I'm going to go ahead and paste a link to her essay into the chat now. So if you click that link, you can see her essay. She asks, have you ever paused when looking up at the beauty of a tree, at the fruit it bears or at flowers in bloom, and thanked the roots? Try it. Notice how the intersecting web-like roots that are typically invisible to us are actually what create the very parts that we experience, enjoy, and celebrate. How easily we sometimes forget that it is those very roots that have kept the tree alive through decades, generations, maybe even centuries. Faulkner goes on to reflect on how her own life, her opportunities, and her values were shaped by the legacy of Dr. King. She notes that while Dr. King is most often and understandably celebrated for highly visible accomplishments, like the Montgomery bus boycott or his iconic I Have a Dream speech, he should be equally celebrated for his less visible but still profound contributions in nurturing others, from her own father, in whom Dr. King instilled the pride in Blackness that he passed on to his daughter, and also to leaders like John Lewis, Andrew Young, Ella Baker, Ralph Abernathy, Bayard Rustin, and countless more whom he brought together under the auspices of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Through all these avenues, through the exertions not only of his own, but of all those whom he taught and inspired, Dr. King had a potent and lasting impact on the lives of so many Americans and on American moral and political discourse. Reading Rachel Faulkner's reflection on how Dr. King touched her life led me to think about those who have touched my life, especially those whose influence I continue to feel well after they're gone. In an interesting coincidence, in addition to this being the week leading up to MLK Day and to Tu B'Shvat, this is also the week of the yahrzeit of my maternal grandfather, Benjamin Weiss, who died in 1988 when I was not quite 6 years old. While my direct memories of him are fairly limited, the stories that my mother and other family members have shared with me about his life continue to inspire me today, and I'd like to share a few of them with you. My grandpa Ben, as I knew him, was born in Poland in 1918. After fleeing with his family in 1922, his father was a Bundist and was on the verge of being either conscripted into the Tsar's army or disappeared. My grandpa Ben spent 3 years in Montreal before settling in New York City. His childhood was steeped in Yiddishkeit, intellectualism, and the arts. He and his family were highly musical, which is not so surprising since his mother, born Rivka Spielmann, was a first cousin of Vladislav Spielmann, the subject of the film The Pianist. He also spent his childhood hustling to get by. He was arrested for the first time at age 12 for peddling onions to support his family. As a teen, he pushed a cart in the garment district in New York and spent summers working as a lifeguard at Jones Beach on Long Island. He also played cello and acted and danced. He went on to study dance with Martha Graham and perform in Yiddish theater and as one of 2 resident white actors in the American Negro Theater. He was just 17 years old when he met my grandmother, an intriguing older woman, at a party of the New York theater wing of the Young Communist League. They had to put their budding romance on hold, however, when my grandfather was compelled to join the army a few years later during World War II. His elder brother, Avram, was actually drafted, but their father sent Ben in his place so that Avram could continue in his already very impressive violin career. So my grandpa Ben joined the army, and eventually rose to become a captain in the Army Air Corps, serving as a navigator for B-24 bombers in the Pacific Theater. In the Battle of Tarawa, his plane was fired on, and he took shrapnel in his eye and his arm, which was nearly severed. But incredibly, he managed to guide his plane with just the use of a compass across hundreds of miles of Pacific Ocean back to safety at Hickam Field in Hawaii. He was awarded a Purple Heart and a Silver Star, and he spent 3 years in and out of surgery on his arm and his eye. From that time onward, he wore one prosthetic eye and had one arm that was noticeably shorter than the other. Needless to say, my grandfather's life was full of its share of adventures, mostly connected with his passions for art, justice, and bringing people together. He was literally a card-carrying communist whose attempts to get into television after World War II were thwarted when he was blacklisted. And he was a devoted patriot, an active participant in the Retired Officers Association and in local politics. In 1949, he was one of several bodyguards who protected the great performer and activist Paul Robeson from armed protesters at a civil rights benefit concert in Westchester, New York. He also took part in an effort to force the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company to admit Black GIs to the then new residential development of Stuyvesant Town, New York, an effort that ultimately succeeded, but at the cost of my grandfather and his compatriots being run out of the town themselves. I could tell so many more stories about my grandfather, stories that were passed down to me by my mother and other family members. But in addition to these highly visible parts of his legacy, there were some quiet moments that mattered too, moments that I actually remember for myself. I remember my grandpa Ben teaching me to dive when I was a little girl. I was terrified, but I was also determined. And I remember trying over and over again to really put my head down before I plunged into the water. I remember enjoying ice cream with him and my grandmother on vacation in Florida and helping them to cook dinners at their home in New York. I remember once asking my mother how Grandpa Ben could see through his prosthetic eye. I think I imagined it to somehow be bionic and being totally devastated when she told me that he couldn't. And though I unfortunately don't remember this moment myself, I do know that my first public role in a Jewish ceremony was at my grandfather's funeral, where I read the 23rd Psalm in his honor. I wish I had my own memories of that moment, but I cherish my mother's memories of it. And I think of it often when I reflect on the long and winding path that led me to the rabbinate, and on my roots in my family's legacy of building community, striving for justice, and contributing to Jewish culture. I tell you all of this tonight, not to brag about my grandfather's incredible life, except maybe a little bit, but primarily to encourage you to connect with your own roots. Because each of us has had people in our lives like my grandfather, whether as part of our birth families or our chosen families, people who have nurtured and guided us, people whose dedication to living by their values moves us to embody our own. We keep their memories alive by recounting their stories and by living in a way that honors their example. I'll conclude with just a few more words from Rachel Faulkner's essay. She says, I hope that this year you find yourself inspired to make the roots of our ancestors visible, to acknowledge and appreciate them. Just as each individual root relies on the next in order to successfully keep the tree alive, let us be reminded this year and in all years that each of us and all the individual movements we are a part of rely on one another to successfully create a more just, equitable, and respectful world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
We are going to take a moment now. I will say partly in honor of all these incredible things I just mentioned, but also in honor of all of the glorious things that are happening in all of our lives. Many of us are enjoying simchas on this Shabbat. And if you are enjoying a simcha right now, a joyous occasion, something wonderful that's happening in your life, please go ahead and share it with us in the chat. Or if you just want to, mention something wonderful about an ancestor, go ahead and do that too. All of these are things worthy of celebration. And I'm going to invite us all to stand up as a community and join together in the Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen. I would like to say Shehechianu or give thanks to Jonathan because I didn't know if you noticed, but that was quite in time, and it is Jonathan is basically calculating about a half a second to 1 second in front of us and playing ahead of the beat so that it will sync up perfectly, which is incredibly difficult to do. So thank you to our music director.
Yeah, I don't think I even realized that. That is wild and an extraordinary accomplishment. Well done, both of you. Way to sync up with each other. Well, for the moment, we're going to remain standing as we join together in a prayer that resonates with me, thanks to the legacies I'm a part of, the Aleinu prayer, in which we remind ourselves that it is on us to build the perfected world that we hope to live in. So please remain standing and join us for the Aleinu on page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We're going to make just a few announcements, although I'm enjoying seeing some folks contributing their own thoughts to the chat. So I just want to, I hope Jeffrey doesn't mind if I read what Jeffrey Silber wrote in the chat, which is that his uncle worked in a MASH unit right behind the front lines in Europe in World War II. He came back and wanted to be a doctor, but there was a quota on Jewish medical students. So he went to Harvard Law School instead. A pretty good accomplishment for the son of Jewish immigrants from Poland. He's very proud of him too. So, like I said, I'm sure all of us have these incredible stories too, and I invite and encourage you all to share them with one another in the coming days. We will have Torah Study on Zoom tomorrow morning at 9:15. I will be leading that, so please join me if you're able. As far as I understand it, we are not 100% sure yet what things will look like next week in terms of whether we'll be in person or online. We will let you know as soon as we have final decisions about those things. But we will definitely keep you posted about all of it. Oh yes, and Mazel Tov to Matthew Auerbach, who was honored by Jewish Nevada with an award for the Young Jewish Leader of the Year. And
Mazel Tov.
Yeah, a terrific advocate for Judaism in Israel, and also like a really excellent substitute at studio when we need him, but with many, many other better things to do most of the time. Is there anything else that we should be announcing at the moment? Cantor Glaser, do you have anything to announce?
Yes, well, Aurelia Wunsch's bat mitzvah will be streamed next week. I believe, yeah, we're don't plan on showing up if you are not part of the ceremony, but yes, absolutely. Please tune in for Aurelia Wunsch's bat mitzvah ceremony next week.
Yeah, please do. We will have that next week. And now we're going to move back into our service for just a moment. We're going to take a moment now to contemplate all those in our lives whom we have loved and lost. On this Shabbat, we're remembering many people. And as I read the name of your loved one, please feel free to rise in your home in their honor. For Shloshim, for the first 30 days of mourning on this Shabbat, we're remembering Shoshana Chana Asher, Patricia Mednick, and Carolyn Vorsanger. If you're remembering anyone else for Shiva Shloshim whose name I've not read, please rise. And if you're remembering anyone for the first year of mourning, please rise and feel free to share that name with us in the chat. The Perpetual Memorials in our community are Ingrid Apter, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, Judy Migdale, Leon Mervis, Harold Weiss, and Joanne May Weiss. And on this Shabbat, we also observe the following yahrzeits. We remember Edwin C. Anderson, Leonard Bernicker, Max Lewis Bernstein, Mary Bloomberg, Eva Chabin, Marcia Donner, Julia W. Elting, Lillian Faber, Jane Faust, Avram Feinberg, Herbert Hecht, Christiane Jahan, Eve Jahan, Anna Karp, Edward Kaufman, Jacob Leviton, Catherine Payne, Eva Seidman, Leo Sladnick, Shirley Targoff, Benjamin Weiss, Eva Zarchin, and Joseph Zarkin. And to all those names, we add any names that you are speaking aloud in your homes or holding in your hearts this evening. We invite you all to rise as one community as we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish, which you can find in your prayer book on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalma divrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shmei d'kudsha, brichu. Le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma, v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen. Say shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. May the one who grants peace bring peace to us, to all who mourn, to all Israel, and to all those who dwell on the earth. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
We're going to honor the peace of Shabbat by concluding our service with Kiddush and Motzi. So if you are out there with a Shabbat cup, with a Kiddush cup ready to hand, feel free to hold it up so that we can all see one another's beautiful cups. We're going to join together in the Kiddush, which you can find in your prayer books on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'vratzon hinchilanu. זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Now, as I have often said, my favorite part of any Zoom service, the part where we all get to see one another's chalot. So if you have a challah that you want to show off, please do so now. I see yours, Ruth. I see Robert and Pearl's. Oh, I see Dorothy's. Dorothy's got the challah roll. Very nice. I see Chris and Janet's. So Ruth, any special flavors this evening? Oh, I will, here, I gotta unmute you. Let's see.
Okay.
There you are.
This is a 7-species challah for Tu B'Shvat.
Is it? That's amazing.
Yes.
They're all represented in there?
Yes, in one form or another. It's not my recipe. It's one from Jamie Geller, but it has them all in there.
Oof, very impressive.
It's a very, very time-consuming challah, but today I had the time. Well, actually, it started last night, but anyway, yeah.
Oh my goodness, a multi-day challah. I like that Eric asked in the chat, tree flavored? And the short answer was yes, it is tree flavored.
Robert and Pearl.
And then some, yeah.
Robert and Pearl also have a beautiful challah up there. We did have Ruth lead us last week. I didn't want to put Robert and Pearl on the spot. Do you want to lead us in our motzi or sure, excellent. Please do.
Yes, Robert and Pearl, you definitely win the biggest, most luscious looking challah award.
Love it.
You have to unmute yourselves, and then if you want to go ahead and lead us. So, you're not unmuted yet.
Okay,
there you are.
There we go.
Okay.
Eloheinu.
Olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. B'tei avon. Thank you so
Beautifully
much.
done.
Join the choir.
Yeah, Ruth has already done it. Now it's you guys.
Exactly. Anyone who sings on screen has to join the choir. Those are the rules. Thank you so much. Rabbi, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, in honor of Tu B'Shvat, in honor of all of these myriad ways that we're celebrating trees this evening, we're going to conclude our service with another ode to a tree of sorts, to the tree of life, the Torah. So
Yes.
please, you can join us in Eitz Chaim He on page 353. Cantor, if you want to say anything else, please go ahead.
No, just an ode to the greatest tree of them all. Better even than the sycamore. Eitz Chaim He למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom all.
Shabbat shalom.